Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
From the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Wow, you guys are already popping off in the chat. You guys are already popping off in the chat, guys. Okay, right off the bat, I want to say one thing, which is if you have a problem with my attitude on social media, too bad, guys. Go back to the previous live streams, going back over almost 2 years ago now. I have repeatedly told people, look, I can be a nice guy if you're a nice guy to me. But if you are coming at me, you are attacking me, you are trying to, set up plans that debunk me, then I am going to come back and destroy your life. That's not a joke. This isn't a game. The MH370 videos aren't some scam or some hoax. If you think they are, well, you're wrong. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to tell you on that front. So just don't come at me. Don't get involved. Don't put yourself in the situation if you don't want to. That's your choice. That's your choice. But expecting me to be nice to people after what people have put me through and tried to do to me, no, sorry. I'm just not that good of a person, I'm afraid. So if you are hoping for someone like that, that ain't me. That is not me. And it's not that I can't deal with the bullshit that they put me through, like sending psychotic letters to my mom. My mom won't even talk to me right now because she's blaming me for her getting socially engineered by a psychotic letter from Redditors online. And you're telling me I have to be nice to these people? You are out of your mind. I'm going to destroy their lives. I'm going to dox them publicly. I'm going to give their address away on live stream in front of thousands of people and have their lives be ruined. And if they want to come after me legally, good. I'm going to destroy your life even more if you do. That's what's going to happen. Professor Dave, I'm going to make that guy hang himself. Do you get it? Have we addressed the situation? Is it clear enough for people out there? Don't come at me if you don't want this smoke. I don't care if you're Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the president of the goddamn United States. I'm not fucking around. Now, that being said, let's get down to business. First off, guys, Ross Coulthart now is doing a 180. Ross Coulthart is now saying that the Tic Tac is Lockheed Martin technology, and he knows. And if you followed me, you already know that too. Because we had Congressman Burleson say that. I think that Ron Pandolfi, told Stephen Greer that is the story as well. And that's why Stephen Greer has been saying it. And we know Lockheed Martin has this kind of technology. So it's not surprising that they would have made the Tic Tac. The reason why I think this is notable is that the UFO community, the woke disclosure side, they are now coming around to the idea that we've reverse engineered this alien technology. That yes, maybe we've figured it out now. And before you say, okay, it's fine, guys, it's fine that they're coming around to this. I want to point out, I was just at Contact in the Desert several weeks ago. And I literally asked Michael Schratt, who's one of what I consider the best researched investigators in the UFO phenomenon. And I'm going to forget his name, something Ryan. But they literally did a talk about reverse engineering. Ask them specifically, do they think that we have figured any of this out? No, was their answer. That was 3-4 weeks ago. So, boy, what has changed? What has changed in just a few weeks? I think I told them to look up air breathing and magnetohydrodynamics, but I don't remember exactly what I said. Now, that's not the only thing. I might have to pull this up. Ross is now also saying that China has figured this technology out. What? Out of nowhere. Not only have we figured this out, but now China has figured it out too? You mean like the thing I've been saying on the podcast for like a year and a half, saying that we're in some kind of war research, like developing this technology, figuring out whoever gets this technology first wins the whole world? In fact, clearly we already won that, and now we're just trying to prevent everybody else from getting there. So out of nowhere, now Ross is saying that? I got to be honest, that triggered me today, guys. That triggered me. Where is it? Oh, I didn't even want to give him credit, so I didn't even retweet his saying it. Because I didn't want to give him credit. But just so that people understand, this is just crazy. Because of all the podcasts I've been on, I have a clip of Candace Owens saying that I said this on her podcast in September of 2024, which was a year ago. This is Candace Owens talking about me in connection to China and the U.S. having this anti-gravitic technology.
And it did just seem like people were really just attacking Sean Ryan for what was actually a very interesting piece of journalism. And I'll tell you why I found this to be an interesting piece of journalism. You guys might recall that I had on Ashton Forbes. And if you haven't watched an episode, that you should, like what happened to MH370, that plane that disappeared. And one of the things that he spoke about, and I was not educated about this whatsoever, was he was essentially saying that the government was hiding technology. The exact same thing that is in this email that he alleges was sent to him from Matt Leibelsberger. And essentially what Ashton Forbes was saying is that there is there is 0-point gravity that exists, that they are able to manipulate gravity.
Close enough, chat.
And specifically, Ashton Forbes was saying that it was this war between China and the United States, that that our government has had this technology and has been hiding it from the public from a very long time. And so now you have an entirely unrelated situation that has nothing to do with MH370, nothing to do with Ashton Forbes. And this person is emailing to allege the same thing. I think that we should look further into that. I don't think this should just be routinely dismissed. I don't think there would be any reason for Sean Ryan to engage in fraud on the public. He's at the top of his game, the top of his podcasting game. And from every angle that he and his producers looked into this email appeared to be legit. And so I'm not going to trust a bunch of people in the intelligence community essentially coming out and saying this email is not legit or this isn't real. I would rather trust internet sleuths who are very good at determining what is and is not real and understands that our government has been invested in hiding these sorts of things for a very long time by calling everybody crazy. And I would also like to trust decorated vets who put their lives on the line for this country above trusting the people that would let them die in a war tomorrow.
I mean, holy shit. Just give her 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, 2-minute speech. She didn't even have to rant like I do. She nailed it. I was one of the only people reporting on this Matt Leibelsberger email situation. Even Sean Ryan wasn't reporting on his own discovery. He reported on it. It's like, bro, this email's really, really specific. It's got dates. It's got names of people. It's got operations. It's got the staging area where these drones are coming out of. And Sean Ryan's not even investigating it himself. I waited and didn't go that hard on Sean Ryan about this. But then I saw him talking to Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson asks him about it. Tucker Carlson asks Sean Ryan about this. Says, what about that email with the anti-gravity drones or whatever? And Sean Ryan's like, yeah, we looked into that and it wasn't anything there. What? Bro, you follow me. Joe Rogan follows me. Sean Ryan follows me. What the hell's going on, man? What do you mean there's nothing there? Are you watching the live stream right now called High Frequency Gravity Waves? I really hope you're watching it right now. Because here was you just like 6 months ago.
The email?
Yep. So this email came in on December 31st at 10:42 a.m. That is Tuesday. He said, in case I do not make it to my decision point or onto the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this
Bro,
until 1 January and keep my identity private until then.
that's a crazy ass way to start an email. In case I do not make it to my decision point or onto the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until 1 January and keep my identity private until then. This is the guy that supposedly, boom, in front of Trump Tower in a Cybertruck. I mean, if that was a message, that's a pretty clear message to like Elon and to Trump. Anyway, please go on. What are your claims, Matt Livelsberger?
First off, I'm not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. What we have been seeing with drones, he puts that in quotes, he says drones, is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China and the East Coast, but throughout history, the US. Only we in China have this capability.
Holy shit. I mean, after you've been researching what we've been going through, like, there's no question this is legit. He didn't make this up. He may be working with partial information, but he didn't make this up. We had it primarily, and now China's got it. What we're calling drones are really plasma orbs flying around in the sky, compact fusion reactors.
Our OPSEN, that's Operations Center, our OPSEN location for this activity is in the box below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they used the balloon for SIGINT and ISR, which are...
Bro, the submarine thing, too, makes sense because these are transmedium craft. These orbs can definitely go underwater. We see the second one in the MH370 videos come out of the water. We see it come out of the water.
Also part of the integrated comm system. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned aircraft. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate.
Damn, that okay.
U.S. government needs to give the history of this, how we are employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them and what the way forward is. China is poised to attack anywhere in the East Coast.
Wow. I mean, that's the bulk and the bulk of it. But so he's saying there that we need to reveal the history of it. We need to reveal the history of how we weaponized this, why we suppressed it, and get it out to the public. And what is he talking about? Matt Livelsberger may not even know what he was talking about there. He's talking about fusion reactions. He may just think like, oh, it's this weapon drone thing that they created out of plasma. Actually understanding that it's a fusion reactor is like a whole nother level of physics that's required to understand that. So he may not even understand the full implications of it. The reason why they're hiding this is because it's literally an energy source that's an infinite energy source, much like having your own sun. If you have your own sun, you can understand the concept you have infinite energy. But they figured out something even better than that. They figured out direct energy conversion. Direct energy conversion, the ability to produce electricity directly. They don't even have to turn it into heat. They don't have to steam, spin anything, what have you. Boom. They can just basically create a dipole, a positive or minus charge, get electricity out of it. There you go. Okay, one more thing before we get into the interview tonight. We're going to be looking at an interview between Tim Ventura and Gary Stevenson, who I've spoken about several times on live streams in the past. He worked with Bob Baker on high-frequency gravity waves, and so I was extremely curious to hear his take on all of this science. Before we do that, I am going to be posting later tonight promotional material for my appearance on Gaia, which is gone live as of today. It's about MH370. It was a few months ago. I have nothing bad to say about the experience. It was actually the nicest anybody has treated me on any show ever. They've got a bunch of stuff, so I'm going to post it on my social medias. And yeah, take a look. Okay. Here is the interview in question. Hopefully we don't get YouTubed for this. Okay. Follow Tim Ventura, guys. I put a link in the chat. Excuse me. There are a bunch of great interviews that he's done. And actually, he put a bunch of sources in here as well. So if you want to read the sources for all the stuff they talk about here, the part that really got me interested was this. Even the DIA and CIA got involved. Ron Pandolfi launched a JSON review of high-frequency gravity waves due to weapons concerns. Wow. This one's going to be a banger, chat. Especially because the beauty of this is that we know this stuff is real. We know this stuff is real. So now we're basically just getting to look behind the curtain. We're getting to see, okay, it's real. How are they hiding this? How is all this working behind the scenes? And we can figure that out. It's actually pretty easy if you know what you're looking for. The problem is most people don't know what they're looking for, so it's just a needle in a haystack. Once you know you're looking for some plasma orbs that are compact fusion reactors, oh, it's easy. We even know now that it's boron-11 that they're using. They could be using helium-3, but they're basically just using third-generation fuel that is aneutronic. There's like no heat being released. It's all just direct energy conversion to electricity. And you go, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. They're like 50 years ahead minimum. So Friday, we're going to talk about fusion. And this is the only thing I'm going to say about fusion tonight before we jump into that interview I was just showing, is that there's no point trying to do any of this free energy stuff yourself because they're on the verge of releasing these fusion reactors, at least ones that are controlled by the CIA, government, what have you, probably pretty quickly. I was partially right about cold fusion. Hot fusion was a scam. They were doing cold fusion, but not cold in the way that we were thinking. It was cold fusion in the aneutronic sense. Aneutronic fusion. That's the cold fusion. So actually, it is technically still cold fusion. But also, ironically, they use boron, which is the highest temperature to ignite. So kind of right and wrong at the same time. Pretty weird, huh? So I'm going to point out on Friday, we're going to go through, there's several presentations, one by Eric Lerner, where he shows all the different fusion companies that are doing like IEC fusion and how far advanced they are and who's better at each one. And what's crazy is like there's several that have to be like either already have it figured out or they're like on the cusp. So it's going to happen. It's happening one way or another. It doesn't really matter what we do. So what I want to do is I want to expose the whole fusion scam that's about to come down because they're about to just give us this, controlled fusion. And it's probably going to be like Peter Thiel's company that they're going to pick because he's already CIA, I imagine. But we'll figure that out later. It's not important for right now. Okay, a couple donos I want to hit up real quick. Truth Teller, thank you very much. Cloud Chasers be wildin'. Yeah, they do. War Ranch LLC, booyah. Thank you, War Ranch, and thank you, Truth Teller. Appreciate you guys. Matt says, gifted a cookie. Do you think they 777D'd Epstein through a wormhole to get him out of that cell? This is actually funny. People are actually asking me unironically if they teleported Epstein out of the cell. And the crazy answer is I have to say they could. They probably could. They actually probably could have. And they probably could have replaced his body too. I absolutely believe they have cloning. I have no evidence for it, but I believe they have cloning. I mean, I'm watching a plane get teleported out of the sky, so cloning doesn't even really seem like a stretch compared to that, at least not to me. But no, I think, truthfully, you know what? I'm going to give you the most blue-pilled take ever here. I think that he just killed himself. I just think that, like, they let it happen and they could have stopped it. Like, that's my take. Like, of course they want him dead. He knows all the shit about them. They're not going to leave him alive. No way. No way. Are you kidding me? How much dirt do you think Epstein knew about these people? Stephen Hawking was going to Epstein Island. I mean, he had physicists and scientists and shit out there. I mean, we're talking about 0-point energy and free energy and stuff like that. Yeah, you definitely want to compromise those people. Epstein had to go. I just think he just knew he had to go. And he was like, yeah, like they probably had an agreement. Like, you go to jail and you know what you got to do, right? Take the cyanide pill or whatever the hell you got to do. Like, you know, your life is over at that point. That's what I think happened. And I think they just turned off the cameras when it happened so that, like, you know, no one's going to go save him or whatever. Stupid. Anyway, that's just my blue pill take, but believe whatever you guys want. Okay. Gary Stevenson, man. Holy shit, man. There's more I want to say about this, but I can't at the moment. Just know, if you're in the future watching this live stream, holy shit, man. Holy shit. Okay, here we go. We're going to start it off with just Ning Li. Ning Li right off the bat. This is the history of gravity wave research. I didn't really know what this interview was about. Like, why is Tim Ventura just randomly interviewing Gary Stevenson right now? It's like, oh, it's the history of gravity wave research. Okay. So if you didn't think those gravity propulsion drones were real, then this must not be real either. So let's listen, and then we can come to our own opinions about what do we think about gravity wave research.
It's trying to put those all, together. So the story, I guess, what brought this back into the headlines was Dr. Ning Li was covered by a fellow named Noah Logan, writing for the Huntsville Business Journal. He did an article on her, and he was talking about some of the mystery surrounding her later years, as well as some of the events surrounding, her rise to fame, I guess, in a sense. So I guess I should start out by saying, do you remember much about Ning Li?
I only met her once at the first high-frequency gravitational wave conference at MITRE in McLean, Virginia, and that would have been 2003. So I did see her present at that time.
2003. So this is important to know these dates. 2003 was the first MITRE conference on gravity waves, and Gary Stevenson maybe met Ning Li, but as you're going to find out, he didn't have any personal relationship. Now, why I think this is interesting is something he's going to say later on. I want you guys to imagine in your heads right now, how do you think the intelligence communities manage the scientists? The scientists aren't like working in the CIA. Most of them aren't. Several of them might be. But most of them are just like normal people that are doing like teaching jobs. So how is the CIA managing those people? How is the intelligence community? How is the military managing them? How are they making sure that they don't go talk to China or Russia or what have you? Think about that. I just want you to think about that. Think about what kind of methods they would use to control them. Okay. We'll come back to that later. At the end of the live stream, that's going to be really important here.
Okay. I didn't stay in touch with her, and I've never collaborated with her.
Well, this story, as you well know, this story is much, much larger and more expansive than just Ning Li. I mean, there are dozens of PhD physicists as well as experimenters, NASA folks. So many people have been involved in this at a deep level, including yourself. But I did want to start with her because I think that is kind of where this story begins. Dr. Ning Li and I believe Douglas Torr co-authored The Effects of a Gravitomagnetic Field on Pure Superconductors back in 1991. We're
about to get our first Yahtzee, and we're only 3 minutes in.
Co-authored in Physics Review D, volume 43. So there was research by Dr. Robert Forward and others before this, but that's where superconductors come into the picture.
You just say Robert Forward? There was research by Robert Forward? The Robert Forward that I've been talking about the Casimir effect, using it to charge a battery, that Robert Forward? Yeah, that Robert Forward. Okay, that wasn't even the Yahtzee moment. Keep going.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. Doug Torr was, I believe that Ning Li was his advisor, and he was getting his PhD. And so he wrote on coherent zero-point motion, how the coherent zero-point motion inside of superconductors might be leveraged to create gravitomagnetic effects.
Coherent zero-point motion inside of superconductors? Holy shit. How have nobody ever said this to me before? Coherent zero-point motion inside of a superconductor? Was that like connecting to Bose-Einstein condensate? What does that even mean? To me, that sounds like Bose-Einstein condensate, like making shapes in a superconductor? Huh. Okay.
This idea had been around for a while. Physics is this continuous stream of ideas.
Yeah.
And so Andrei Sakharov had first conceived that gravity might be coming from some interaction with the zero-point motion, and that was in the 60s. And then Hal Puthoff did a lot to build on that. And so the stream of
what? I love you, Gary Stevenson. Did we just become best friends, Gary Stevenson? Sakharov in 1967 proposed that gravity was based on the 0-point fluctuations, and then Hal Puthoff, 1989, gravity is a 0-point fluctuation force. Anybody out there? Andrei Sakharov and Hal Puthoff, guys. Yeah, we kind of talk about them like all the time. Again, watch Candace Owens. Candace Owens, September of 2024, over 1 million views. What does Ashton Forbes say in there when we get to the science part? He says it was Sakharov who first discovered 0-point energy, or at least he's getting the credit. Who was he? He was a fusion bomb developer for Russia. He helped develop the hydrogen bomb for Russia. Discovered that gravity was a 0-point fluctuation force. And then Hal Puthoff shows up 1989, writes his paper. I think his paper was published in Physical Review as well. Okay.
Potentially leveraging coherent zero-point motion, which happens in superconductors, really originated with Sakharov and then Puthoff. And then I think Tor picked it up from there, working with Ningley. And so that's what led to their paper in Physics Review D that described a potential method of creating a magnetic effect with this coherent zero-point motion.
Okay. And so
somebody in the chat just said this as well. Yeah, that's like a triple Yahtzee score. Nukes equal time travel. I'm starting to believe, chat. I'm starting to believe. Why? What happened? They figured out fusion from the H-bomb. They figured fusion out and 0-point energy out from the H-bomb. There was one problem. It was neutronic. It would kill you if you went near it. If you went near the thermonuclear explosion, it's going to evaporate you. Why? Because of the heat. Because of the neutrons. So what's the solution? A neutronic reaction. A neutronic fusion reaction. It's an implosive effect. And where are you imploding to? Where exactly are you imploding to? Guess you're imploding to a different location. And if you're manipulating space-time, then you're manipulating time. This is what Jason Giorgiani said on the Danny Jones podcast and with me. That these gravity crafts are time machines. Not the time machine type that we would think of, but close. Close. Wow. The Yahtzees are already racking up, chat. This is just absolutely crazy. I literally changed the subject the last minute from fusion to talk about this because A, I know Gary Stevenson's as legit as can possibly be. And actually, after watching this, I'm now actually just wondering if he's intelligence himself. He's too smart. He's just way too smart. And he's very, very well organized. Throughout this whole interview, you're going to see like he's reviewing his notes and he's got all the dates and the people he wants to talk about listed out. It reminds me of me, actually. But he is extremely well organized, which tells me that this guy, he could be intelligence for sure. He's too smart to give anything away as well. And he's so natural about it. Kind of like Hal Puthoff, where like you just can't even tell that they're just not telling you everything because of the way that they tell the stories, the way they explain everything. It's just, but the thing that gives them away is their lack of enthusiasm, their lack of passion. They've lost their passion because they've been forced to lie. They've been forced to hide the information. And that's what gives them away. Anybody that's talking about warp drives, gravity manipulation, they should be excited as hell. They should be excited. They want to go talk to people about it. Instead, it's just like, another day at the office. Oh, well, never going to come out anyway. That's kind of how the reaction is. And that's what makes me skeptical of their motivations right away. You see Chance Glenn, Gary Stevenson was there in Chance Glenn's lab. He's the guy trying to do gravity waves. Chance Glenn's excited as can be. He's wondering, and he's all of a sudden he's wondering, like, who are all you guys? He goes, who are you guys exactly? Because he probably dawned on him for a second. He's like, wait a minute. Why did all these people come visit my lab? This is pretty weird. Anyway, this is going to be relevant here in a minute.
Ning Li's paper, it did get some attention, it did get some traction, but the media frenzy started in 1996. And this is kind of more to the historical backstory of things. In 96, Dr. Eugene Poklonov attempted to publish a paper on superconductors and gravity control. So his paper was about an experiment back in 1992. And if I remember correctly, he had a 12-inch rotating superconductor, so a very large disk at several thousand RPM. He was doing materials analysis, structural integrity testing on this thing. And from what I recall, pipe tobacco from a colleague of his started rising in a column above this, and they felt that that was a reduced gravity effect after some investigation.
Actually, let's see.
And gravitational shielding, right?
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that story. I did read some of his papers over the years, but I always wondered what prompted him to think that there was reduced gravity. Certainly, if you're seeing effects in other rooms, then that tends to indicate it's not just a thermal effect.
Yeah,
it could very well be a gravitational effect if it's propagating across floors.
So that was
okay. I'm going to skip a couple minutes here, but basically, it sounds like Stevenson is very familiar with Ning Li's work, Poklonov, etc. But there's something going on here, right? Like he's not really excited about that either. Well, we're about to find out that Gary Stevenson was working on this stuff before these guys were. I think, wait, when does he talk about? Here, maybe?
Poklonov and Ning Li were
at ITT and weather satellites. And then I have...
Okay, here we go. Here it is. So we learned about...
I did not work for him at that time. I worked for him at ITT and weather satellites. And then I happened to that was in the mid-'80s, and I happened to run into a colleague at a conference, and he says, "You're not going to believe what our old boss is working on. He's working on anti-gravity." I'm like, what? Because any other time in any other context, certainly in the 80s, if somebody said they're working on anti-gravity, it was like, wow, it was going to be some nut job. It wasn't someone you really trusted and knew, a really authentic researcher like Ron Koser. So when I heard that Ron Koser was interested in it,
ITT, I don't know what ITT is, but all of a sudden he's saying that his boss is working on anti-gravity in the 80s. In the 80s,
that made it real for me, and so I became interested at that time.
Okay, I was going to ask that. So that's kind of what got you into it. So
Yeah.
Ron Koser was working with Glenn Tony Robertson over at NASA, right?
Yeah. He
So
also oversaw and funded Ning Li's effort, although it was a separate effort. He was
What?
program manager for all.
he was working with somebody, or someone was working with someone that was overseeing Ning Li's effort. What we're seeing right now is that this community of the gravity wave researchers or whatever, very small community. Very small community. They all kind of knew of each other, of course.
Well, that for NASA, yeah.
okay,
Yeah, it does. It's not quite scripted, but it's like, why did they do this interview? This interview just seems so weird. It's going to make more sense at the end, guys. I promise.
okay. So yeah, that's
I
wonderful.
immediately called him when I heard what he was doing. He's like, "Ron, you got to talk to me. What's going on there?" And then they expanded the program when Bukletnov had his results. And I don't know how much funding they had for that. I think Tony probably was
There we go.
closer
That's
to that.
probably better to hear.
Yeah. Well, so with Poklonov, with his results, it did make scientific circles in terms of news. But the breakout for him was being featured in Charles Platt's "Breaking the Law of Gravity" that was published in.
Okay, so Poklonov got some attention. NASA never replicated. They talk back and forth a little bit, but according to Tim Ventura, he spoke to Tony Robbins or Roberts, whatever his name is, NASA guy. And they say that they never were able to replicate the spinning superconductor experiment. Fine, whatever. One of the other things they say as well is that these superconductors were very brittle. They were very brittle, and they were hard to mold into the shape that you wanted. So there were challenges associated with these superconductors. Let's go here.
Yeah, and the other thing that he said was there are a few different experiments that were proposed. Every replication attempt did not follow the instructions, and so you have negative results. For instance, Dr. Martin Timar had negative results.
Yes, I remember that very clearly. Yeah.
A few others did as well. They all cut corners on the experiment in one way or another.
What do you make of the claims of Amy Eskridge that there has been an experiment that has seen something? Have you seen?
Pause, chat. What do you think? Gary Stevenson just asked Tim Ventura, what do you think of the claims by Amy Eskridge, rest in peace, that there has been something?
Any of that video?
So Amy talked with me about it, and I ended up talking with Claude Power, and he is in France. He's a scientist in France. He was somewhat tight-lipped. He was looking for funding, I believe, at the time. He said that he had replicated, I believe it was Tonklonov's impulse generator experiment.
Yeah, which is slightly different than the spinning disk one. Yeah.
Yeah, and saw results.
You replicated the impulse generator? The impulse generator was the beam that they created later on. They talk about that in a few minutes here. Okay, keep going.
I think that was the only one that I took away from Amy. Do you remember what she told you about experiments?
I didn't speak to her directly. I didn't know her. I only watched videos after the fact, and I believe she's passed away.
Yeah.
She's no longer with us. So.
Yeah, I believe she's passed away. What are you talking about, bro? What do you mean you believe she's passed away? Okay.
So not possible to speak to her at this point. But there were videos.
It's not possible to speak to her at this point. That's the understatement of the century, Gary.
Of some talks that she gave. She was very organized in this area and pulled together a lot of material and presented it. And so I enjoyed watching her work. It's just that there was so little of it, unfortunately.
Yeah. So my takeaway after talking with her was Claude Power, and I believe he is still with us. I think he's still around. I just haven't talked to him in several years. Let me jump back to the history for a moment.
Okay.
The big story, Ning Li did have one big story that happened in the very late 90s. I think it's 2000, 2002 in that time frame. It was called Taming Gravity. It was published in Popular Science, I believe. And again, I will put a link into that. It might have been Popular Mechanics. Taming Gravity was kind of Ning Li's equivalent of the Charles Platt article. It wasn't as long, but it was certainly big, and I think that it helped to reinforce what had started with Ponklonov, because he made these giant media headlines, Wired Magazine and all that.
Yeah.
Now we've got Popular Science and Mechanics covering Ning Li doing the same thing. She was talking about AC gravity there. And so the next step after that was when she left the University of Alabama to found a startup called AC Gravity. That was the name of her effect and the startup. From what I understand, she took a grant of $448,970.
Okay, so she got money and then she went dark, right?
So, for folks who kind of wondered what that relationship was or where it went, again, Tor goes back to the beginning, back to 1991. They did about a decade's worth of work together. And then after that, it just kind of, she went her own direction, I guess. Yeah, so I've got that. And then let me see.
Okay, so just to recap here, first takeaway is that 90s are when the anti-gravity research, whatever, kind of seems to have taken off from the public perspective. But we're already getting underpinnings of they might have been working on this behind the scenes. Gary Stevenson, him or his boss were working on it in the 80s. So seems like publicly this stuff started to come out. Ning Li goes dark. Podklanov, ? We're going to find out what happens to Podklanov. So maybe they got sucked in. And what I've been saying is that these superconductors are what they're using inside of these orbs. Why? Because these are super powerful electromagnets. And this now allows them to achieve magnetic Tesla of like 17 or 20 or more, which is what they need for the plasma confinement. That's what they need for the confinement. And the thing about them is because they're ceramic, they can mold them. They can mold them. Why is molding them important? Because we want to turn them into donuts. We want to turn them into donuts. We need a ring. Apparently, toroids are what you need. So we need to turn our superconductors into donuts. Well, here you go. We've got the perfect thing. We weren't using these to spin around to make anti-gravity. We were using them to spin around to make fusion happen. Something even better than anti-gravity. Although, really, you could say they're the same thing. Okay, here we go. Okay, yeah.
I'm Tony Robertson.
I'm going to skip the brittle superconductor part because I just explained it.
They got into trying to sinter these themselves, and they had.
It's about to get fucking Yahtzee-ish up in here, guys. Where's JK Philly fan? JK Philly fan, make your presence known. Make your presence known, JK Philly fan. Thank you very much. Yowza. I think it's Yowza. Ning Li was passionate about figuring out anti-gravity, definitely. Gabe, thank you very much for that super sticker. Gabe, you the man. Eric, help. Big super sticker. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Okay, here we go.
Many issues with breakage, cracks, deformations, things like that.
Now it gets
and then
good.
There was another part of this that may have been related to secret sauce, which is this melt texturing on the outside of them. Yeah, and that's essentially, I believe it was putting one layer of a superconductor on top of another and then sintering, and you end up with kind of basically a bilayer device, right? Or you might think of it almost like a
significant, because there are certain bilayer devices. If you go from an S wave to a D wave, or vice versa, you could trigger a spin 2 transition, which would result in a graviton. So it could be significant. And I've looked at Giorgio Fontana's work, and looking at his work, the so-called Gazer, the gravitational laser, that's how it operates. It has a dissimilar Josephson junction where there's an S-type, a type 1 attached to a type 2 D-type. And then when you go through that barrier, when you push photons through that barrier, they're forcing spin 2 transitions, which are gravitons. So you're saying,
what? What? If you force your photon through a Josephson junction, it becomes a graviton? What? Holy shit. Holy shit. Spin 2 transition? Spin 2 transition is turning something into a graviton, making a gravity wave. Holy shit. I know he's not messing around. He's quoting Fontana right here. Fontana's paper, I've already read it like 2 years ago because I was talking to Tom Montauk about scalar waves, and Tom Montauk brought up David Maker, or I brought up David Maker. I think he brought up Fontana and Modenese. Modenese is about to get a name drop in a second here. Holy shit. Let's just go back like 15 seconds.
Laser, the gravitational laser, that's how it operates. It has a dissimilar Josephson junction where there's an S-type, a type 1 attached to a type 2 D-type. And then when you go through that barrier, when you push photons through that barrier, they're forcing spin 2 transitions, which are gravitons.
Holy shit! There's 2 different types of superconductors. Use 2 different types of superconductors. Oh my god. Holy shit. S-type and a D-type. I didn't know what the hell that meant. He's talking about the superconductor types that you can use. Whoa. Wow. How am I hearing things that I've never heard before? How am I hearing things that I've never heard before? It's about to just get even weirder.
So you're essentially you're taking photon energy and you're re-emitting them as gravitons. And so that may be one of the ways that this was working versus the current zero-point motion.
Okay.
So it could have been a quantum effect. Yeah.
So one thing I want to highlight for the audience, this has been a major point of confusion going back for 20-something years. There are at least 3 different superconductor experiments. There is Tonklonov's rotating disk, right, which again are around a 12-inch.
Oh, yeah, how is Tim Ventura just like glossing over that? Bro, my man just told you you can jam a photon through a Josephson junction and it comes out as a gravity wave. What in the actual hell are we talking about here? How are you not saying a follow-up there? This is like Joe Rogan being handed a free energy microchip and just being like, oh, this can power my phone? Cool. That sounds pretty cool. Do you understand there's no plugs on the free energy microchip? Do you understand he just said we're turning light into gravity waves using a microchip? I feel like people aren't understanding the significance of the words coming out of these people's mouths. And before people say, oh, the effect is too small, don't worry, we're getting to that. We're getting to that.
YBCO superconductive disk spinning at several thousand RPM. There's something called the impulse generator, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And then there are also high-frequency gravitational waves, and there were various proposals for that. And that's something you specialized in. You were very deep into that.
Gravitational waves at the time.
So were the superconductors in that, what kind of experiments were proposed there? Did they require these massive superconductors, or was it small?
Yeah, what were you doing, Gary Stevenson? Please tell us.
Well, as a matter of fact, we did propose a thin film version based on Fontana's design. Fontana originally, when he published in 2007 on this, recommended a bulk design. Well, that's just a lot of material. So it's a lot easier if you can get a thin film version to work, especially if it's the transition that's forcing the gravitons anyway. All you really need is that junction. And then
holy shit! That's why you only need a thin film? Isn't this what like Dave Rossi and Sal Pais were talking about in my interviews with them? About you just need like this thin film superconductor or whatever? And he's saying, oh, we did a Fontana design, but we didn't need it to be this like thick bulk material. That's too complicated. Just make it a thin bulk material because we just need the transition to happen. That's all we need. We just need the transition to occur. Holy shit. Squids. Josephson junctions. What the hell?
Material around it that you have enough photons that are emitted, or gravitons that are emitted, photons that are pushed in, gravitons that are emitted out. It's essentially a transducer type device, and you could.
It's a transducer type device. A transducer changes energy from one form into another. That's what transduction means. So he's saying you're changing light into gravity waves using this type of device. Okay, first of all, chat, if you're wondering why we don't have this everywhere right now, it's because the military has it. The military has it and nobody else is allowed to have it. I mean, that's pretty much the answer, right? If you're wondering why we don't have it, people are like, if they had this, if this was real, we would be flying around in the Jetsons. And I go, oh, damn, you are a prisoner who doesn't realize you're in the prison still. Oh, boy.
You can run it in either direction, essentially. You can run it gravitons to photons or photons to gravitons. He was always working on the generator side, which is pushing photons to gravitons across that interface, essentially forcing spin 2 transitions.
You can do it either way? Wait a minute. What in the hell is the dynamic Casimir effect doing? How is the dynamic Casimir effect producing light now that I think about it, right? Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going, wait a minute. He just said using a Josephson junction, you can convert gravity waves back into light also? Now, dynamic Casimir effect must be doing something else because it doesn't use a Josephson junction, but wow. Okay. I mean, I just learned something huge today that I had no idea about. No idea. Yeah, hold up. Like, just we're turning gravity waves into light and light back into gravity waves. You know the other thing that this reminds me of, chat? Sonoluminescence. Sonoluminescence. Why? Because it may turn out that sound, what if sound is a gravity wave?
It's a process called sonoluminescence.
The first time I saw sonoluminescence was in a darkened room. I was transfixed to
gravity
look at this spherical flask of fluid. And you look into the center, and in the center see a glowing blue-purple light.
Sound wave produces... Gotta mute that sound, though. Sound can produce light. Interesting. Man, this is wild. This interview is so wild, man. Oh, let me hit these donos I just saw pop up. Holy crap, Amir. Wow. Huge donation. So much gratitude for all your efforts, Ashton. Even when you get pushback from big names, you still stick to your convictions. Keep this up and you'll tip the scales and the truth will come out. It is inevitable. Much love to all of you here. Thank you so much for that. That's just a huge donation. I agree. I think it's all going to eventually come out. It's coming out one way or another. The trick now is getting ahead of it. We now have to figure out where is the technology right now and which of these people is in the know. Specifically, which of these fusion companies is working with the CIA. They already know how it works, and they're just basically waiting for the green light to be allowed to become trillionaires or whatever the hell they're about to do, which is presumably what's going to happen. So if we can expose that before that happens, it would go a long way to curing some of the horrible crap happening in this world at the moment. Shout out to the Pilled chat and Rumble chat as well. I see you guys out there. Thank you very much. Let's pull this up and let's get back to this.
So that's what he published on. And so that was certainly one technique. Another technique that Bob Baker recommended used piezoelectric crystals. And it's the mechanical motion of those crystals. And if it's the third derivative, and they have to have a quadrupole moment in order to make a gravitational wave.
What? You can use piezoelectric crystals? Isn't that what Salvatore Pais's high temperature superconductor patent is? Uses piezoelectricity? I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure he just described Salvatore Pais's high temperature superconductor patent.
You can bias them so that there's an array of these that have a quadrupole moment. If you have a third derivative of a quadrupole moment, a mechanical system can generate gravitational wave. And that's how these black hole collisions generate gravitational waves.
You need a quadrupole moment, which, by the way, I've only posted one research paper, not scientific paper, research paper by Dave Rossi. And it was something about quadrupole oscillations back in like October of 20, or maybe November or December of 2023. Quadrupole oscillation, something or other. So you can produce a gravity wave with a mechanical device if you have quadrupole oscillation, according to Gary Stevenson right here.
They have that component. That's the important component to make a gravitational wave. It's just that the effect is astronomically smaller when you're not dealing with two colliding black holes. So then the question is, can you get any mechanical device to get any meaningful level that's measurable? And then how are you going to measure it, right? So you need a detector on the other end if you're going to measure what's being emitted. And I know that Bob spent a lot of time with Fengyu Li in China working on that Lee Baker detector scheme, which was very sensitive. It's like down to 10 to the minus 35 delta L over L, which is, parts to 10 to the minus 35 of length change.
Quadrupole, not quadruple. Quadrupole, guys. Quadrupole. 4 poles. Imagine an oscillator like that. Now, the other thing I want to point out here is you just said, how do you detect it? So producing a gravity wave is one thing, but how do you detect it? How do you detect your gravity wave? Because the detection threshold is extremely tiny. Extremely tiny. So not only do you have to produce it, but you also have to be able to detect it. And so that's what he's talking about here, is how did they come up with a way to detect it?
Was where it was measuring. The question then became, is that above or below the background noise for gravitational waves at high spectrums? We're talking about using gigahertz spectrums, which how much is naturally occurring.
Gigahertz spectrums? I can't remember what gigahertz spectrums are, but that's pretty high.
There. So that's where the work of Leonid Grishchuk came in, because he and Rudenko had been looking at the cosmic background, trying to suggest based on different cosmologies, how much gravitational wave background is there out there. And if it's below the 10 to the minus 35, it might still be useful as a communication device. If it's way below the natural background, it's not useful at all. So we were trying to measure, we're trying to gauge, at least, not measure because we never built any of these devices. We're trying to gauge, would it be worthwhile to build these devices at these kinds of strain levels, which were very small.
Okay, I gotta play another clip. Man. So there's Gary Stevenson saying, okay, even if this energy level is really small of this background gravitational waves, even if that energy level is super small, we might still be able to make a detector. Even if you can't make, or we might be able to make a quantum communication device. That's what he's saying. Quantum communication device. So we might still be able to make a quantum communication device, even if this background gravitational, think of it as like the stress of the space-time is really small. Even if the 0 point energy is really small, let's say. Where is it? Here it is.
Great demand. And also it came to light through conversations with Dave Rossi that there may also be other people wanting to work on Josephson Junction type communication equipment. For instance, Hal Puthoff's name came up as possibly working in this area. And so when we, for instance, approached Star Cryogenics with this notion, they said, I'm sorry, but we're already committed to another design team. So.
Wow. He's not just talking the talk, chat. He's not just talking the talk. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that, because that kind of brings us to a major inflection point in the story, I think. So some of the key figures, the ones that I can remember, definitely Drs. Robert Baker Jr., Dave Froning, Dr. Fengyu Li in China, and I believe Fengyu Li had a HFGW lab as well as grad students. He actually had a pretty big undertaking for a while. Dr. Martin Timar, and there were several others publishing papers.
Who do you think he's about to name right here? You can't make this shit up. Who is Gary Stevenson about to name? Just a second ago, Tim Ventura is just listing off these gravity wave researchers, people that have, provided to the community for gravity wave research. Who is Gary Stevenson about to name right now? I can't believe this shit.
Hathaway, he has that lab in Canada. Hathaway.
Okay.
Hathaway? George Hathaway in Canada? One of the authors of one of the DIRDs, George Hathaway, the one where we found his lab and he's researching negative energy and all this shit that we've been talking about. That George Hathaway, friends with Hal Puthoff.
The Murad, Paul, even though he was
Paul Murad of the Air Force.
sort of the program manager for a lot of the stuff. He did a lot.
The project manager. I'm just waiting for him to drop Frank Mead right now. I mean, what are we talking about here? Paul Murad is like the other project manager on a lot of these papers, along with Frank Mead.
A lot of work and vetted a lot of work too. So I think Murad was important. Hal Puthoff, certainly, and Eric Davis had
Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis. Dude, what are we talking about now, chat? Do you really still think the videos are fake, chat? Do you really think the videos are still fake? We're not just messing with big oil. We're messing with everybody. We're messing with everybody. Chat, for the last week, I've just been wondering, why am I still alive? Why am I still alive? I am pissing off, gotta be the energy companies, all the defense contractors, the ones that are spying on us, the ones that are making magical orb technology, like Lockheed, Sierra Nevada Corporation. The CIA must want to kill me like none other. Like none other. I'm revealing nuclear secrets. I'm revealing the fact that we figured out fusion was also manipulating space-time and weaponized it. Why am I still alive? I mean, you got to really wonder, right? They've probably killed people for less. But here's the rub. Bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is probably keeping me alive. Bureaucracy. Because they can't just technically assassinate an American citizen, not from the government perspective. It'd have to be extrajudicial, right? Like the defense contractors would have to send their military people after me that are technically not government employees. But I think that we've caught them in this catch-22 situation where there's no easy justification due to the natural circumstances of how this has occurred. Because this occurred in a way where nobody gave me illegal information, because I didn't hack into anything, I didn't do anything illegal. Somehow this has created a situation in where they want to stop it, but they have no way to do it legally. They have no legal way to stop this from happening. I mean, they could make something up. They could do an op or what have you, sure. But they don't have an above the board way. No above the board way. Now keep that in mind. And I'm not leaving the United States. You are out of your mind if you think I'm leaving the United States. No way in hell. But I also don't give a shit. I really, really don't give a shit. If anything were to happen to me, this thing is only going to escalate even further. So they can't really do that if they wanted to. I literally just dare them. Go ahead, do it. I don't even want to do this. I don't want to be a social media influencer. I've repeatedly considered just shutting it down and not even live stream anymore, because I never wanted to do this shit. I should not be the person who has to do this. I want to be on the sidelines watching somebody else do this because it's entertaining, but it's not really fun for the person who has to do it. But anyway, I sidetracked too much. Here we go.
Researched this area for many years. I already mentioned Giorgio Fontana. Doug Toro, we've been talking about. I just mentioned Grishchuk and Rudenko as the Russians involved in this. And then I think Clyde Woods, because he was looking at the material properties from an electrical point of view of superconductors, optically and electrically. How did they behave? And how would they behave with spin 2 particles like gravitons? And so he did some work on the superconducting aspects.
And I appreciate you listing them. That helps us.
Clive Woods is another one that he mentioned before that I haven't dug into too much yet, but I'll put him on the list.
Collect this. So there was a major change, and I was pretty close to this in terms of time when I got into this area. I didn't realize it then. Now it's much more apparent. Before the 2003 MITRE High Frequency Gravitational Wave Conference, you essentially had kind of this loose collection of people. Ning Li and Poglanov were kind of the two focus areas because of all this media attention. And then after that, you had this single event that brought everyone together, and you really had this community start to form, right? And so I did want to mention
High Frequency Gravitative Conference, yeah.
Yeah, so and I believe that was in McLean, Virginia, at the MITRE building.
It was. I think it was Paul Murad and Bob Baker were the co-chairs of that. And
what? Paul Murad and Bob Baker were the co-chairs? Bob Baker, who won a Lifetime Achievement Award, who's a Lockheed Martin engineer, won a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011 for high-frequency gravity waves. He's got like 20 papers on high-frequency gravity waves. Like 20. It was insane how many I found. And a couple of them are co-authored with this guy right here, Gary Stevenson. There he is. You're looking at him. That's how I found Gary. Okay. They were the ones co-chairing the MITRE conference.
And Paul Murad was a DIA guy, but he was like, we could hire a bunch of spies and spend millions of dollars to try to infiltrate their labs, or we could just invite them over. He was a pragmatist, right? We could just invite them over and, hey, what are you guys working on? And ask them that way. So I think
You went to
that
that one.
approach, being way more pragmatic, was quite a brilliant stroke and helped form a global community. So good.
What the fuck? We don't have to run any operations on them. Let's just invite them over for dinner. Ask them what they're working on. They're awkward ass engineers. They'll just tell us. We can just literally just control them. Holy shit. These guys are just meeting up with the spooks. Paul Murad was a DIA guy. Okay, it's all starting to become clear now. It's all starting to become clear. There's infighting going on. There's infighting going on in the intelligence community. That's the reason why I'm still alive. You know what? I don't even know who's on what side. I'm going to throw my allegiance right now, knowing literally nothing. Right. I'm with the DIA. I'm with the DIA. Fuck the CIA. Fuck the CIA. I'm on the DIA side. I don't even know who's on what side, but I'm on the DIA side. I just know the people that put out those DIRDs, those people presumably want the world to know the truth. If you authored the DIRDs and you put the DIRDs out there and got them released, then you're trying to tell people how the science works, because the DIRDs are the answer. In fact, spoiler alert, this entire interview is just a rehash of Bob Baker's superconductivity DIRD. Literally, this whole thing is just a rehash of it. Yep. They even say so at the end of this. The part that I can't get over, they just invite them over for dinner. Hey, come over for dinner. Oh, you're working on gravity wave shit? Well, that's dope, but it's classified now. What? What do you mean? It's called restricted data. You don't know about it? Restricted data. This is real, by the way, Chad. I'm not making this up. Restricted data means if you say something related to nuclear research, it doesn't even have to be published. It's just born secret. Born secret. I'm literally trying to push the buttons to get them to come at me with the restricted data. That's what I'm trying to do with the fusion and nuclear stuff. I want them to come at me and tell me that I have to stop talking about it. We'll get there. Don't worry. It'll happen. Just a matter of time. But holy shit, man, I can't get over the fact that they just invite them over for dinner. They just invite them over for dinner. There is no way. I mean, Gary's got to be intelligence, right? He's got to be, dude. Got to be. I mean, either he's intelligence or he's like, you know, connected to the intelligence community. He's just way too smart. I can just tell when someone is way too smart. And what Gary's saying here is like a lot, but also at the same time, he's being careful about what he says.
It did.
I'm going to say it again. I got to hear that again. Paul Murad is the one that came up with this. It's actually.
I did want to mention
high frequency gravity conference. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that, I believe that was in McLean, Virginia, at the MITRE building.
It was. I think it was Paul Murad and Bob Baker were the co-chairs of that. And Paul Murad was a DIA guy, but he was like, you know, we could hire a bunch of spies and spend millions of dollars to try to infiltrate their labs, or we could just invite them over. He was a pragmatist, right? We could just invite them over and, hey, what are you guys working on? And ask them that way. So
APEC is a total psyop, 100%, bro. APEC is a definite psyop, dude. He's just saying exactly what they do. They just showed up at Chance Glenn's laboratory. They just show up at Chance Glenn's laboratories, like 7 of them, show up to this dude's laboratory who's doing gravity wave research. Why? Because the best approach isn't to like do some elaborate $1 million psychological operation. Just fly out to their lab and see if they'll have you do an interview, like do an interview. You'll see how close they are, right? What is Gary Stevenson doing with Chance Glenn? He's trying to figure out how close he is. That's what Gary Stevenson is doing. Gary Stevenson knows how this works. You don't do an interview like this where you're like, oh yeah, we're just converting the photons into spin 2 gravity particles. What? Bro, what? No, he knows how this shit works. So he's going there. These guys are going there. They're going to figure out how close people are. So I feel bad for the other APEC people that think that like, oh, they're being given a chance to present their work. Yeah, in a way they are, to the people that are going to gatekeep it. To the people that are going to gatekeep it. This is why people freaked out when Pons and Fleischman went public, because Pons and Fleischman probably knew that this was all a big scam. And they were like, let's not even go through the peer review process. Let's just go straight to the media. and they went straight to the media because they knew this was all just some fucking scam. And they showed that there was abnormal energy. They showed that, you know, there was fusion happening, and they had dozens of replications, and they still got crucified. They still got crucified because there's no stopping the government. The government has unlimited power because they control people's minds. They control people's minds.
Being way more pragmatic was quite a brilliant stroke and helped form a global community. So good.
It did. And there was a lot of
Shit just
email
gets
and online
crazy,
collaboration.
man.
I was like CC'd in a few of those emails. And, you know, it was kind of like all the
Look at
usual
my notes.
suspects, and they were tossing back and forth ideas and working on
Not to
things.
say there were problems. The first gravitational wave conference, a bunch of the Chinese couldn't
I
get
gotta
visas
slow
because of
this
the bird
down
flu.
because you guys aren't even gonna believe
And
what I'm
so
about to
there was
hear.
that. And the second one, we got both the Russians and the Chinese all in the same room with the Americans and Europeans. But then the third one was already getting to the place where Russia wasn't cooperating with anybody. And so it was just the Chinese and the Americans at that stage.
Well, let me ask more about that. So the only conference that I'm aware of was the HFGW 2003 conference. These
Okay.
other two, were they the same?
They were follow-ons, yeah. And so 2007, I didn't know this at the time, was funded by ATIP. So this was an investigation of gravitational waves that was prompted by the behavior of UAPs. And so this early UAP task force, ATIP, had some money to go look at some of these areas, including gravitational waves. There's some suspicion that they're being used somehow. And so they pulled together all these Hal Puthoff's shop in Austin, Texas. I think it's called EarthTech.
EarthTech
Frank
International.
Davis worked there at the
I
same
think it's called EarthTech. Gary, shut the fuck up, Gary. You don't know what Hal Puthoff's company is called? I think it's called EarthTech. Yeah. Like you're not best buds with Hal Puthoff. Can we stop pretending? Can we just stop pretending? There is no way you're name dropping this guy and you don't have like an open line of communication. He's probably on your hot dial. Oh yeah, what's his company's name again? This reminds me when Lou Elizondo was like trying to pretend like he didn't know who Stephen Greer was. Lou Elizondo tried his best to pretend like he didn't know who Stephen Greer was, and it just comes off as like awkward. It's like, oh, what company is he working for? Oh yeah, it's it's EarthTech. Jesus, this world, man.
time too. So I remember Eric in and out of the room, and they got us all in a skiff, and it struck me as very strange at the time.
They got us all in a skiff?
Shop in Austin, Texas. I think it's called EarthTech.
EarthTech
Frank
International.
Davis worked there at the same time too. So I remember Eric in and out of the room, and they got us all in a skiff, and it struck me as very strange at the time. Here we are, you know, the world superpowers all working together at the same time on the same thing. What prompted this? Right. Well, what prompted it was the UAP thing, which they didn't inform us of why they were interested.
All right, then keep your secret.
I had to play it, chat. Sorry. Also, I had to play this one. I can't believe the words I'm hearing right now. I can't believe the words that I'm hearing right now. Gary Stevenson was with Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis and EarthTech in Austin in a skiff with Russian and Chinese gravity wave researchers doing some shit, having a casual conversation in a skiff about UFO and gravity wave stuff. And you just pretended like, why were you pretending like you didn't know what Hal Puthoff's company's name was? Who's that for? Who's that for? This reminds me of the Rick and Morty skit where he pretends like he doesn't know who Iron Man is. Why are you pretending like you don't know who Hal Puthoff is? You're literally just telling me in the next sentence that you were in his place in a skiff with him, talking about UFOs and gravity waves. I cannot believe this shit right now. What is this interview? Can I have more interviews like this? Can I interview Gary Stevenson? That will be an amazing interview. That will be an amazing one. I want to know what he thinks about inertial confined fusion, dense plasma focus, propulsion mechanisms, and teleportation would be another thing I'm very curious about his thoughts on. Because anybody that can make a gravity wave microchip, which is exactly what Gary Stevenson was describing earlier, should be able to figure out that we should be able to make a wormhole pretty easily, or at least a warp drive at a very minimum. Holy crap.
All we knew was they brought us all together to work on high frequency gravitational waves.
Okay, so I wasn't aware of this conference at all.
Nobody was aware of this. I don't think anybody in the world was aware that this happened until he just said so right now. In fact, the UFO community should probably be talking about this. I feel like, I mean, Eric Davis is sort of sitting in the middle of your guys' UFO whistleblower things, like Eric Davis is. And this is Gary Stevenson saying he was in the skiff with Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff, who's Eric Davis's boss, talking about gravity wave research related to UFOs. Chat, are we just in crazy town? Are we the only sane people on this world? I feel like I'm exposing like the biggest conspiracy ever here. And practically, I mean, sure, there's a lot of people watching right now, but in the cosmic scheme of things, there's like, what the hell, man? How are people not paying attention to this? They didn't just not know what these words mean?
Send you some pictures that Hal and I took, and I think Eric Davis took some pictures too.
Send me the pictures. Send me the pictures. I want those pictures. I want to post those pictures all over social media as well, if that's allowed. Holy shit.
Conference that lasted a week, just like
it lasted a week. A week? That's not a conference. That's a vacation. A week? Contact in the Desert was only 4 days. These people go on a week-long vacation. Hal Puthoff's probably holding them up in like a chateau. And they just go around and talk about secret gravity research and UFOs. Shit, sign me up. Sign me up. How much do I have to pay? I'll pay. I'll do that. What are we talking about? What is this? What are these guys doing? What the hell is going on here? Yeah, whoever's mentioning Epstein Island. I mean, now we know that, Stephen Hawking, I mean, what was that man into? I don't want to say ill about him, but did he like him young or what's the deal? Jesus. And then here's the other thing. Do they have their own skiff? The way that he just described that to me or to us was he saying, I went to Hal Puthoff's that's Austin, Texas, but then they were just in a skiff together. So does Hal Puthoff just have access to a skiff if he needs one? A skiff is a secure government facility where they have like armed guards and they take your phone when you go inside. You have to go through all these protocols. That's what makes it a skiff. They just have these on demand. Now it makes sense why the Aero officer that I spoke to was jerking off Hal Puthoff so hard in the phone. I couldn't believe this Aero officer was just like giving fellatio to Hal Puthoff over the phone with me. And I'm sitting here wondering, dude, what? I'm the guy telling you that Hal Puthoff is the one at the center of all this, and you're telling me how much of a great guy he is? This Aero officer literally owes me. You guy out there, you owe me because I haven't said your name, and oh my God, do I want to say your name so bad. So badly. It's not that anybody would know your name, but I know that you spoke to Jeremy Corbell and these other fucking assholes. So for me to say your name would prove that I spoke to the Aero officer and what have you. What I realized, I don't give a shit about Aero, and I don't care about Congress either. They're all retards. They don't know shit. So, and I mean, that's not true about Aero. Aero knows in their gatekeeping, so I know there's no chance they're going to let this come out. So that's why I just don't care about Aero at all. But what I do want to do is expose them. I want to expose them because Hal Puthoff's at the center of all this. And if they're jerking Hal Puthoff off, giving him little HJs on the phone to random people they just talked to and just met, then yeah, Hal Puthoff's in the middle of all this shit. And they know. They've all known. And that Aero officer knew right away. That Aero officer looked at those MH370 videos and he knew they were real instantly. You got to be out your damn mind if you think some Aero officer that works in intelligence doesn't recognize Gorgon's stare and color FLIR footage on an MQ-9 drone. No, he knew it was real instantly. And he fucking owes me for not saying his name because he fucking knows those videos are real. No question, no doubt. Sorry, I got sidetracked on that. But I think it's really important because this is just pissing me off listening to this because I know they're covering this shit up and a lot of people are covering it up. People wonder, how could they cover up something like this? It turns out everybody just wants to fucking lie and enrich themselves. They all do. Nobody's got a noble bone in their body. It's crazy. It's crazy. They're just literally like, oh, I'm in the military, so I just have to do whatever the military tells me. There's nothing I can ever do against the military, even if it's just completely morally wrong. And that's how they keep us, everybody, in line. Believe it, don't believe it, I don't care. Oh, okay, before I get too upset.
At MITRE. And they even had like a river cruise down Austin that the wives were involved.
Motherfucking river cruise, chat. A motherfucking river cruise. Free energy for everybody? Nah, let's take the wives on a river cruise. Take the wives out on a river cruise. That's what's important. My God, chat.
Invited to come along with us, and so Nancy got a chance to meet the Russian wives and so on. And so it was quite a pleasant conference. Hal's a very good host.
Okay, so 2007 was one follow-up. You mentioned there was another one after that?
Yeah, I think it was 2017. I can look up the date. And that was hosted by the Chinese. That was in Chengdu. So they had invited the Russians and Iranians, but we were starting to have a lot of conflict with the Russians, and the Russians didn't show up. And by then, Grischuk had left Moscow, and he was working at Cardiff in England.
So the Russians stopped showing up. Yeah, probably because they got played, and China was probably getting played before too. And that's why when we zapped the plane out of the sky, China realized that, yeah, they realized what their position was. Yeah, I can't get over the river cruise shit, man. Anyway, the Chinese.
I think he was in poor health. He later passed away. And there's a wonderful documentary that the Ukrainians made. He's actually Ukrainian, but he was trained in Moscow right during the USSR days because.
He just says another important geopolitical thing. He's actually Ukrainian. Guys, there's like differentiating between Ukrainians and Russians is like differentiating between Texans and other Americans. Like technically there might be some difference, but they're ethnically all the same people. Like people don't understand. Like, oh, we stand with Ukraine. What the fuck are you talking about, man? How would you feel if Russians were like, we stand with Texas against the 49 states? You'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? This isn't your home. You'd be like, you aren't us. You have no say in this matter. Right? That's how you would act if like Russia were backing Texas. That's like what us backing Ukraine is. Ukraine was part of the USSR. They broke apart. It wasn't 1,000 years ago. They broke apart in the late 80s and early 90s. It wasn't that long ago. It was one generation ago. One generation. Jesus, man.
It didn't matter what republic you came from. If you were really a brilliant guy, you still got sent to Moscow. And so he quite often worked for and represented the Russians, but he was really Ukrainian. And so he didn't come, and then Rudenko didn't show up. So I think we didn't really have any Russian representation at the third one. But the Americans got a lot done. Baker was there, and Andrew Beckwith was there with me. We had a fourth American scientist, and so we worked with the Chinese pretty much exclusively at that conference. Yeah, it was just the two groups.
No, I appreciate it.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit just because I want to go too far here, but this part is also really interesting. I can't believe the stuff that Gary Stevenson brings up in this interview. So there's another major event that I spoke about on Tim Pool, and I've spoken about a lot of podcasts that includes a lot of the people that I was just talking about. So if you know or can guess what it is, which scientific event have I been talking about? I'll even give you a hint. It happened in the 90s. Thank you, Birding Rubber. I appreciate it, man. Have a good night. Paul, I don't know what your deal is, but giving you a timeout. Just chill out. I'm not a liar. If you think I'm a liar, you probably just have a mental problem. That's the reality. I mean, you don't want to accept it, but I don't care. You just can't be in my chat raging out. Okay, here we go.
2005. I'd have to check my records on 2004. I may not have gone to that one.
Yeah, so the ISNPS, Dave, again for the audience, that was the big space nuclear conference, and it had like all of the guys from Los Alamos and Sandia.
I don't see any.
That's like in Albuquerque, right?
Yeah, they let them out once a year, and that was their conference. So
we just rode a line on their coattails.
Yeah, and Stave had so many brilliant topics. There was Section E. I absolutely loved what they covered.
30 seconds.
And they were basically on space colonization, things like that.
Oh yeah, I didn't go to those at the time.
Yeah. And then Section F was all on emerging propulsion. And like you said earlier about this other conference, this was kind of a greatest hits in terms of researchers. I remember in 2006 we had pretty much all of the big names there, right? You had Dr. Martin Timar, who had made headlines repeatedly.
Right. The Austrian.
Eric Davis. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, what was the driving implication, or the impediments for this in that area in the early 2000s was, of course, NASA's Breakthrough Propulsion Physics program. So this gave the BPP researchers a place to show their wares, to show their work.
The NASA Breakthrough Physics Propulsion. What do they call it? What do they call it? BPP is what they call it, the Breakthrough Physics Propulsion, run by Mark Millis. We looked all through it. It includes all the research. It includes all the research that we have been talking about. All the research we've been talking about, guys, is in there. How insane is that? And so the NASA breakthrough propulsion thing, like Gary's basically given a history, the same history lesson on gravity wave research that I've been giving. I mean, I'm only giving it because I've literally learned it from these guys, but you get the point. You get the point.
And so because of NASA's, I think it was Mark Millis, is that the right name?
Yeah.
Was the program manager for that? Because of Mark's money and his his generosity for this community, we got a lot of research done under the auspices of the Breakthrough Propulsion Physics program. The Europeans, at least the Brits, felt sufficiently left out that they formed their own program at BAE Systems called Greenglow, and it wanted to do the same thing. They didn't have the same funding level, so they weren't able to get as much interest over on that side of the pond. But
I think there was also Robert Casanova at NASA, right? And I'm NASA Institute for Advanced
Yeah,
Concepts.
I don't know him. Bob Chambers, I know Robert Chambers was on the British side.
Yeah.
Rob Chambers. So anyway, they also needed a venue to present, and so they were also presenting at this conference, at the time, at the state conferences. So those were some of the driving emphases that led to Section F.
Yeah, and then after Section F, because ISNPS closed down the STAFE conference, Glenn Tony Robertson started the STCIF conference.
Yeah.
And I wasn't familiar with this until he sent over basically a list of all the papers he was doing reviewing on these papers. This was just as big as STAFE, except that he was taking this on. He had been a co-chair for STAFE along with Paul Neurath.
It's a lot to organize a whole conference, right?
Yeah, he did the whole thing, and he chaired STCIF by himself. And there must have been 80 or 90 papers a year.
Yeah,
so
that's a lot.
Okay, I've got Bob Baker's website, chat. I've got his website up. Okay, we are... Oh, shit. This is happening in real time. What do we got here? GravWave LLC. GravWave LLC. Q&A Jason report on high-frequency gravity waves. First encounter with intelligent extraterrestrial beings? Search for extraterrestrial intelligence? Military applications? Wait a minute. Look at this. 2007 workshop. Here we go. Holy shit. Holy shit. Holy shit. This is the workshop. Eric W. Davis. Wait, can you guys not? Why can't you see the picture? Are you guys not seeing what I'm sharing? Wait, why are you guys not seeing? Oh, I'm at. Okay, holy shit. It's all in a sec. It created a new window. Here you go. Holy shit. Wow. 2007, Austin, Institute of Austin Studies, Texas. This is the one that he was just talking about. Wow. Eric Davis is the co-chair of the workshop. I don't even know, what do these chairs mean? There's just like an honorary role. There's Fang. So Fang was the one from China working on the gravity wave research. My dude needs to wear a beanie or something, though. Giorgio Fontana. Holy smokes. Wow, he was there? So this is the Russian guy. Grishchuk. Okay. Joshi, is he from India? Yeah. So they basically got everybody together. Lee from China. Another Lee. And then Hal Pudov, co-chair of the workshop. Wow. 2007 Gravity Wave workshop. A week. Gary Stevenson. Holy shit, man. Holy shit. There he is. What? I just want to read this. Gary Stevenson received his BS degree in physics from Montana State University in 1983. And then for 16 years, he was at University of California, Purdue, University of Washington in physics and electrical engineering. Sigma Phi Sigma, physics honorary, past member of some organizations, AI AAA or AA. Aerospace Optical Division of ITT, where he performed research, development, and systems designs. Okay, and then through 1997, he returned to Hughes as a system engineer, where he was responsible for electro-optical EO systems engineering. Wait, what? He built electro-optical cameras? Wow. An airborne infrared tracking sensor for the U.S. Army. And he prepared proposals for Eagle. Tactical high energy laser. Bro, Gary is definitely a Black Project engineer. Holy shit, chat. Holy shit. Wow. Satellite system. He's been working as a system engineer at Boeing, where he's been in the system design of electromagnetic mission equipment and systems. Oh, holy shit. What is happening right now? This is his background? You have got to be kidding me. Stevenson is an expert on the Gershenstein effect. Utilized for both generation and detection of high-frequency gravity waves. This was from 2007. There's Clive Woods. There's Yang. Okay, and then a bunch of Chinese guys that I don't recognize. And then Christine Black. I wonder if we can find Christine Black. Bonnie Baker. That's presumably his wife. Yeah. Wow. Okay, let's finish this. Let's finish this interview. My goodness. Yeah, Gary's definitely Black Project. No question. You know, I mean, what was his open credentials are that he's like helping build satellite and what sounded like the early versions of Whammy systems and EO electro-optical sensors. Wow. Okay. Don't worry for the people watching. We're not done yet.
A lot to try to take on for one guy. Yeah. He just didn't have the same. Well, because they had University of New Mexico help support them on the state conferences, right? So they had a whole infrastructure there, which Tony just didn't have. You know? So I think it only lasted a couple of years what he was doing.
Yeah, it was an amazing effort. When I learned what went into it, I was just blown away. Another experiment, I mentioned this earlier, was the force beam experiment. In 2001, Eugene Poklanoff and Giovanni Modenese published a force beam paper entitled Impulse Gravity Generator Based on Charged YBCO Superconductor with Composite Crystal Structure. This was very different than Poklanoff's first experiment. People mix this up all the time, and that's why I want to clarify this. In the force beam experiment, they described a high energy electrical discharge from a Marx generator onto a stationary superconductor. And so let me illustrate, let me highlight the differences there. Again, in the first Poklanoff experiment, you had a 12-inch diameter rotating superconductor going at several thousand RPM. They claimed that it created a column of reduced gravity above it, right? In the second experiment, you had something more or less similar to a hockey puck. It was a smaller superconductor. I believe it was 4-inch diameter. And they literally just nailed this thing with a massive discharge from a Marx generator.
Electrical discharge. Okay.
Yeah. They just dropped a ton onto it.
How much charge do you think they dropped on this superconductor? So for the second experiment, Poklanoff said they took this superconductor and they just blasted it with electric charge. How much electric charge do you think they blasted it with? Answer is a lot. A lot.
And there were specific parameters to it. If I remember correctly, it was inside of a magnetic field. There were definitely parameters to the distance, the voltage. I believe it was 500,000 to 1 million volts. It was way up there. Massive pulse of energy. The interesting thing, the thing that caught my eye about this, I did an interview with Poklanoff and really drilled down on this. They claimed this experiment produced a beam of gravitational force capable of crushing brick and warping 1-inch steel. So
crushing brick? They claim that the beam they did, they zapped the superconductor with a huge amount of voltage. By the way, spoiler alert, 1 million volts. 1 million volts. Blasted with 1 million volts, and they could crush brick and bend steel with it.
They weren't talking about, minute changes in force. They were talking about something that was, you could propel a spacecraft. Unfortunately, it probably has weapons applications, all sorts of really big picture.
Fortunately, it has weapons applications. Yeah, I'd say it has weapon applications. Also, shout out to Tim Ventura, guys. Give him a follow. Amazing interview. Really good stuff. I don't even hold him against him if he actually is CIA or whatever's going on. I don't even really care, guys. I don't care. At this point, the world's all messed up. Who cares who's on what team or whatever?
Things, right? And so that was the second experiment. People mix those two up, but they need to delineate between those two.
Yeah. Right. So I don't know if you're familiar with the work of David Maker, but he outlined.
He just name dropped David Maker. David Maker was the one that I was talking about with Tom Montauk. Tom Montauk was familiar with his work because it's all about scalar physics. And scalar physics is about the science of understanding gravity waves, if I were to explain it.
At 512 kilovolts, something called the vortex impulse force. So it may also have been that they were trying to hit that vortex impulse voltage because there's a natural resonance there, supposedly, in free space.
So what he's saying here, somebody was asking, does Gary Stevenson thinks there's a phase transition moment? Yes, there must be a phase transition. That's what he's essentially saying. The Gershenstein effect is essentially saying, if we zap this thing with enough voltage, classic electrodynamics falls apart. We see a different effect. We see a scalar effect. I showed this, I want to say several months ago. I forget what the guy's name is. Master Evo, I think. Had a great demonstration that showed the curving electromagnetic fields. And he said, if you apply this huge voltage above 20 to 30,000 volts, those fields become scalar instead of curving. That's the idea of what we see here. We see some sort of transition occur above a certain energy level.
Space. I don't know that, David Maker's work is very outside the mainstream. So I don't know if that was the impetus for them to do it that way or not, but it's a funny coincidence that it's right there at 512 kilovolts.
That is interesting. And I believe that
512 kilovolts. So 512,000 volts. That was the level. 512,000 volts. And he's saying that was the same level David Maker showed that we could produce gravity waves. So if you want to know how many volts it takes, I would say let's start with 512,000. Let's start there. 512,000 volts. Now we have a number.
May have been the voltage, but it was way up there.
Yeah, it was we'll have to look.
That's a pretty crazy reference to just pull out of your ass, by the way. To just be like, oh yeah, you ever heard of David Maker? 512,000 volts. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, so I do have a couple more notables, and some of this I took a break from this area, and so some of this stuff happened kind of after I took a break from it.
Okay.
In October 2008, the Jason Defense Science Advisory Panel dismissed claims that high-frequency gravitational waves could pose any kind of national security threat. And I view this as a mixed blessing. I learned about this several years after the fact. The Jason panel, which I believe was led by Dr. Ron Pandolfi, did not cite...
Pause. No. That's the one name you don't say. That's like saying Voldemort's name. You don't say that name. He who shall not be named. Ron Pandolfi. CIA spook. He's now connected to this. The same Ron Pandolfi. I have a literal live stream over his middle school level emails that I get from this douchebag. Are you fucking kidding me right now? Are you fucking kidding me right now? The only question I have now is Ron Pandolfi and the CIA just complete retards and they just didn't think any of this stuff was real and they still don't? Or do they know it's all real and they were using this to try to hide it and make it go away? I'm leaning towards the second one, but the maturity level of his emails really make me think that he might actually just be totally retarded. It's really hard for me to decide. I'm just really torn between the two options. It's possible that the CIA is just completely incompetent and somehow what we're seeing is defense contractor stuff and the CIA is just full of idiots who can't do anything. Or the CIA is evil and they literally started a tribunal against a guy over technology they knew worked. Okay, keep going. Tell me more.
Pandolfi requested this particular hearing of the Jasons, and so this was one of the things.
Pandolfi requested this hearing. The Jason group is this secret scientist group that basically we get these people together. They're probably all Black Project engineers, and they decide, is this person damaging national security by teaching people how to make fusion bombs or some shit like that? Presumably that's what they do. So not only did we just decide like, hey, why infiltrate the scientists? Let's just invite them over for dinner. But then we also turned them into a tribunal where we can use them and weaponize them against anybody else who tries to develop this technology. Jesus, chat. These people just find ways to piss me off more and more and more.
Every summer, the Jasons would be handed a list of, I don't know, 5 questions or half a dozen questions and say, hey, this summer, this is what you guys, we want you to look at this. And so they convened every summer when they weren't at school because they're all profs.
They convened every summer when they're not at school because they're all professors. That's what he just said right there. Now it makes sense. John Kramer, George Miley, how much do you want to bet they're part of this Jason group? How much do you guys want to bet? I would bet almost anything that George Miley of the University of Illinois, John Kramer of University of Washington, I would bet almost anything they were there, and they probably are still going to them. This is wild. Chat, Dave Rossi's one of my friends. Dave Rossi's already one of my friends. I can talk to him anytime I want.
And so one of the things on the list that Ron Pandolfi was highlighting was, hey, you know, Bob Baker's out talking to the Chinese about high-frequency gravity. Should be concerned about this. And we looked at it as a scientific endeavor, not, you know, a defense weapon development program, but they wanted to make sure, you know, there weren't any ill effects of this work. And so is it a security threat or not? And so he got them on the list. He got HFGW on the list, specifically Bob Baker, his work. And so
holy shit. Ron Pandolfi went after Bob Baker because he was afraid Bob Baker was helping the Chinese with gravity waves. Wow. Holy shit. Dark Ashton might have to come out. My goodness. I didn't think it was going to happen. Chat. But you know what? I've been wrong before. Oh, feels good. Feels right. Are you fucking kidding me, Ron Pandolfi? Are you fucking kidding me? You went after my boy Bob Baker, who I didn't even know. You went after Bob Baker, tried to say that he was a spy working with the Chinese. Bitch, please. I looked up your history. They were investigating you for trying to help out our adversaries with satellite technology or some crap like that. I really don't even give a shit. If I find out Ron Pandolfi is somehow connected to MH370 in any way, shape, or form, if even one of my FOIA requests comes back and is not rejected, and it has Ron Pandolfi's name somewhere on it, I am going to crucify this man. I am going to crucify him. Destroying his life doesn't even begin to describe what I'm going to do to this man. I'm going to put this man in the dictionary. Next to scumbag. Scumbag. Sounds about right. Anytime anyone sees the word scumbag in the dictionary, boom. Ron Pandolfi's face is going to show up. My spider sense is going like crazy around this guy. My gut instinct is that he's a CIA piece of shit who's been destroying people's lives and hiding this technology knowingly so that the United States government can monopolize it. That's my impression, and that's basically how this story seems to be going down. Basically sounds like, oh, this guy figured out high-frequency gravity waves, and he's talking a little bit too much. So we're going to have the scientists, the Jason group, just slap him down a little bit. Wow. So let's listen to the story.
So Bob asked, did I want to go along to the Jasons and be at the hearing? And I said, heck yeah, a free ride to San Diego. So Bonnie drove us down in his wag. Right. Bonnie drove us down. We lived in LA both at the time. So we carpooled down to San Diego, it was at San Diego at the time.
Carpooled. So basically they're buddies that were living in LA. So they're Bob Baker and Gary Stevenson were buddies. And Gary Stevenson's kind of like, oh yeah, they're tribunaling you. Okay, cool. I'll come. It's a road trip to San Diego. We're going to go jerk off in San Diego, everybody. Okay. You feel like he wasn't taking this with the seriousness in which I would have taken it. If a CIA spook is trying to have me go in front of a tribunal of the Jason group to defend my actions, I'm going to be pissed off. I'm going to be pissed off. Gary's like, yeah, whatever. It's a free vacation. It's kind of a weird reaction.
Travels around, or it did. It's canceled now. But at the time, it was in San Diego. So we drove down to San Diego and met with them. And yeah, basically, they were non-believers. They said, all these effects are too weak to be useful. I pointed out, even weak effects can be useful for communication if it's not below the noise of the universe. And so they got hung up, I think, on the Gershenstein effect, because I had invoked on one of my papers, not all of them, but one of them, I invoked the Gershenstein effect as one possible technique for not only emitting.
Wow. Gershenstein effect, he referenced it. And so they used that effect against him. What do you mean? How would they even use that against him? Are they trying to say there's some debunk of the Gershenstein effect, presumably? So they use the Gershenstein effect against him to argue that, well, there's no real way to make a gravity wave. It's not really possible. Therefore, they let Bob Baker off the hook. Nah, this sounds like suppression to me. This sounds like suppression is what they did. This whole thing was a scam, right? Like the whole thing was a show. The whole thing was a show to just slap Bob Baker on the hand and tell him, hey, careful what you're talking to the Chinese about, bro. You're giving a little too much information to the Chinese. So, of course, the answer is we're not going to get Bob Baker in trouble. We need Bob Baker. The answer instead is to discredit the whole thing. Discredit the whole thing. Make everybody believe there's nothing there. Nah, gravity waves? No, that's stupid. You can't do gravity waves. What do you think? That we can just discover things? We can just understand how the universe works? No, we've already figured everything out. Everything there is to be figured out, we figured out. Look, this is a TV. How do you think I'm talking to you, chat? Obviously, if we figured out the internet, we figured out everything there is to the world. Duh. And of course, everybody just goes along with it because that's how the world works.
In gravitons, but for collecting gravitons, basically you say you push a graviton through a very strong magnetic field in the presence of an electric field, and out pops photons. So I don't think that's...
What? Put gravitons into an electric field and out pops photons. Okay, I think I've seen that before. I think I might have seen that before, chat. Is that this? Put a gravity wave through an electric field and you get a photon release. A release of light. Like those photons that are being released from the plane when the plane's being zapped away through space-time from a gravity wave. Quite interesting. Now, even if I'm wrong on that, and even if that's not the exact explanation, still pretty damn weird. Pretty crazy. So push a gravity wave through an electric field and you get photon release. Oh, wait. Say that one more time for me, Gary Stevenson, because you're blowing my mind today. Gary's just really blowing my mind today.
Use gravitational field equations to do that, to show that. But when you work out the math, it's a very, very, very weak effect. Very weak effect. If it's done with the classical field equations. In comparison with Fontana's, which is quantum mechanical, but when you're using the classical field equations, you have a very weak coupling constant of, it's g over c to the fourth or fifth, and it's on one of my papers, not all of them, but one of them, I invoked the Gershenstein effect as one possible technique for not only emitting gravitons, but for collecting gravitons. Basically, you say you push a graviton through a very strong magnetic field in the presence of an electric field, and out pops photons. So I don't think that's too big a stretch. And
push it through a magnetic field in the presence of an electric field, and out pops photons.
Einstein had used gravitational field equations to do that, to show that. But when you work out the math, it's a very, very, very weak effect. Very weak effect. If it's done with the classical field equations.
There's the rub. If you use the classical field equations, the Gershenstein effect is a very small effect. What are the classic equations, chat? Maxwell's equations. Maxwell's equations. It's a very weak effect. But remember, what did we learn about Maxwell's equations? We got rid of the scalar potential. If you bring back the scalar potential, if you ramp up the voltage super high, even that small effect becomes significant.
Comparison with Fontana's, which is quantum mechanical, but when you're using the classical field equations, you have a very weak coupling constant of, it's g over c to the fourth or fifth, and it's this astronomically small effect. So they got stuck on that, and so I think that's why they attempted to debunk based solely on the Gertrude effect. And we wrote a dissenting article later on, but I think that was just too late. And so I think that's one of the things that led to Feng Yuli not getting funding for his detector.
They tried to debunk the Gershenstein effect. So definitely, at least my opinion, they knew it was real and they were just discrediting it, right? They were just discrediting it. They needed it to go away. And so that's what they did with this whole Jason tribunal. I didn't even know Jason was a thing. Now we know that there's a literal organization of physicists that work in academia that all get together and they all know about super secret technology and they work with the CIA to determine if anybody's leaking it out. Am I a topic on the Jason group? Chat. If anybody out there is in the Jason group, in fact, I might FOIA it. Give me the list of the topics. If MH370 or me is on the topic, I will literally frame it on my wall right here. I will frame it on the wall for all of life. That would be the most amazing achievement ever. In fact, that's my goal now. My goal now is to become a topic on the Jason group. I want these Black Project engineers to have to talk about me. Oh, that would be absolutely amazing. Literally, my life would be complete. You can orb me after that, chat. You can just orb me away. Sorry, not chat. I meant to say that to the CIA. You can orb me away after that. Okay.
Okay. Well, and this the Jason committee, to me, that seems almost like a watershed moment because I think that it took a lot of the air out of HFGW research,
certainly.
right?
Yeah, it's certainly slowed Bob down. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, so on the one hand, you had Paul Murad, who was again with Defense Intelligence. On the other hand, you had Ron Pandolfi, who was with Central Intelligence. And so this was kind of the two agencies going head to head over the scientific.
Yeah, which is a little bit of that's natural and healthy in a democracy. We don't want one agency to run everything. So
holy shit. It was the DIA versus the CIA. Wow. And the way that Gary Stephen responded to that, that's the way that only an intelligence officer responds. Oh, it's the kind of the DIA versus the CIA, and we don't want one intelligence agency to have too much power over the other. Who do you mean we? What the fuck are you talking about? Nobody in the public knows about this shit. Nobody in the public would ever talk about those intelligence agencies like that. Only somebody who's an insider says stuff like that. But now it makes sense. Yeah, that's healthy. It's healthy for the CIA and the DIA to be at ends with each other. Are they fighting each other right now over MH370? Are they fighting each other right now over whether or not I should be assassinated? I certainly hope not. It's an easy yes if we're being honest with each other here, chat. If it was me, I would have assassinated myself. I would have given the order a long time ago. Don't ever put me in charge, chat. Don't ever put me in charge. That's all I'm saying. So this actually makes a lot more sense. Why? Because the Defense Intelligence Agency is the one that commissioned the Hal Puthoff papers. They're now public. They could have probably denied the FOIA request for them if they wanted to. So that's who I'm aligned with. I don't really care who's on what side or what have you. I'm aligned with the people who wrote the DIRDs. That's who I'm with. CIA, suck my dick. Suck my dick, CIA. Those actually just feels great to say that. I might say it a couple more times. Suck my dick, CIA. Yeah. Feels good. Feels good. Feels right. It feels right, chat.
Dissenting opinions, I get. I get that. I don't hold it against Ron.
Yeah. So the Jason committee did not cite Ning Li's research specifically. They did go through, I guess, more of the genre. And as you mentioned, I think that their focus was more of a concern about China's involvement in this area of research. And they were saying, can this be weaponized? The takeaway was it's far too weak to be weaponized. And that's really what the document says.
Right. That may have been the whole goal.
They, and this is kind of the silver lining. My interpretation was that this entire branch of research could have potentially gone dark and been classified if there were applications.
Yes, if there's demonstrably applications that could be dangerous. Yeah.
So the Jason panel really saved this to the public. They kept it open.
I mean, we're still in the open, right?
Yeah.
Still open access literature. Yeah.
What the fuck are they talking about here, man? Are they just openly talking about this shit went dark? Tim Ventura saying this saved the public? What the fuck do you mean it saved the public? Please, seriously, somebody tell me some other context for what those words mean Because to me, those words mean we gate kept high frequency gravity waves from the public, and that's a good thing. What do you mean we saved the public? No, Ron Pandolfi suppressed high frequency gravity waves from the public for another fucking 15 years or whatever it is now. He did a tribunal against Bob Baker, and you're saying, oh, it's a good thing because there's weaponization capabilities of this? I mean, I guess I know what side you're on now. Did I misinterpret that, chat? Like, am I being disingenuous here? Because that's exactly how I interpreted it. Let me just, I want to make sure I didn't mishear what Tim Ventura just said.
Research could have potentially gone dark and been classified if there were applications.
Demonstrably, yes. If there's demonstrably applications that could be dangerous, yeah.
Yeah. So the Jason panel really saved this for the public. They kept it open.
I mean, we
saved this to the public? What?
Still in the open, right?
Yeah.
Still open access literature. Yeah.
Yeah, it's technically still open access literature. Is that it? Why is Gary Stevenson talking about like this like it's a win? Why is he talking about this like it's a win? Well, they didn't classify the research, so I guess that's a win. Bro, we could be in Star Trek right now and we're not because the CIA is gatekeeping gravity waves and fusion research. Like, what the fuck, man? This is why I sent a letter to George Miley last night. I'm just going to read it because I'm Dark Ashton right now. I'm Dark Ashton. Actually, here we go. Oh, here we go. Holy shit, yes. Okay. Jack Sarfati replied, and he CC'd the world. And he said, is Ashton a crook or a loon or both? And then Tim Ventura replied 2 hours ago. The Jason panel review of high-frequency gravitational waves is a matter-of-fact public record and has been completely resolved. It was decided high-frequency gravity waves are too weak to have any potential weapons applications. Therefore, the concern was dismissed. Again, my personal opinion is the decision did a tremendous service. This is literally an email I just got 2 hours ago. You're hearing it firsthand right now. I'm reading the email. A bunch of people are on it. My personal opinion, this is Tim Ventura. My personal opinion is the decision did a tremendous service to this area of research as it prevented it from possible classification. It saved the open research of dozens of scientists who contributed to it over time. Ultimately, matter is ancient history, but it is part of the history and worth preserving. What is important is investigating this research moving forward. In relation to Sarfati's work, Stevenson and others have posed the question of whether Jack's metamaterials, I don't give a shit about Jack Sarfati. His shit's stupid. Jack Sarfati didn't discover anything. Yeah, okay, I don't care about what was that? That was a weird response, bro. Well, anyway, we know what his opinion is. It saved it because it didn't make it be classified. That is a weird reaction to that. I gotta be honest, guys. I gotta be honest. I'd rather it just be classified because when you don't classify it and then you say, oh, well, it's not significant. That's called brainwashing. That's called lying to people. And you think it's a win because they didn't classify it? No, you're just literally allowing them to get away with propaganda and bullshit. Do you really not see that, Tim Ventura? Do you not see that that attitude is the problem? The attitude of, oh, yeah, well, they suppressed it and they made the world believe the Gershenstein effect doesn't work, but they didn't classify the research that they've now discredited, so it's kind of a win. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? That actually pisses me off so much that I want to debate you over it right now. Let's have a debate, Tim Ventura, because now I'm pretty sure you're gatekeeping, because the only way you could rationalize something like that is a gatekeeping mentality. And this is like saying that Pons and Fleischmann, that the DOE did Pons and Fleischmann a favor. The DOE did the Pons and Fleischmann a favor by discrediting all their work. Because they discredited their work and ruined their life. But you know what? At least they didn't classify the research. At least they didn't classify cold fusion, so it's a win, right? The DOE was doing them a favor by running a tribunal and discrediting the whole branch of physics. They did physics a favor because it didn't get classified. Jesus Christ, dude. You need to get your like whatever that is. Like, I can't believe you even doubled down on it. That's wild to me, bro. Okay, we got another email here too. Guys, this is why these like physicists and shit on these emails are all complete retards. All completely retarded. Like, the reason why they didn't discover any of this shit, they haven't exposed any of this, because they're all complete idiots. Like, we're going to literally strip the PhDs from some of these people that don't deserve them, like Jack Sarfati and all these other like cranks or what have you. These people do not deserve their PhDs. They didn't earn them. They're basically just clout chasers who've been living their life off of like stealing credit from other people and pretending like they hung out with smart people, therefore they're smart as well. If these people were actually even half as smart as they pretended to be, they would have already discovered everything that I discovered like 10 years ago. None of this was really even really hard to find once you knew what you were looking for, which tells me that none of these people have any idea of what they're looking for at all. None of them do. So let's start with this Mike Turber guy. Mike Turber has he wrote a whole like 3 pages here. Oh, I'm not going to read all. So Mark Turber is quoting 5x5 News. That's his source. 5x5 News is his source. Ashton, who will get this email, is a wackadoodle POS moron who has no clue what he's talking about. Go ahead, Ashton, and defend yourself here and watch how I spank you into oblivion with actual data and knowledge that Professor Dave, who spanked you pretty hard, links below, couldn't do. Mike Turber, I actually just feel bad for you because you're just destroying your life. I have your real name, dude. I have your real name. You sent me your real email address. You're sending me real emails from Mark Turber, a complete shit clown, and you thought you were going to take me down? You were a mentally ill retard, Dave, or Mike Turber. Your source is Professor Dave. Like, how fucking retarded are some of you people? I literally have to wonder how dumb these debunkers can be that you still think the videos are fake. You still think the videos are fake. Even after all of this, you still just want to throw your life away? You just want to throw your life away because your life is a lie and it upsets you so much that you need to believe that I'm lying to you. Even after all this research, even after listening to Gary Stevenson explain the same exact stuff that I've been explaining to you, you still want to throw your life away for no reason? Well, wish granted. Wish granted, Mike Turber. You want your life ruined? It's going to be ruined. No problem. I've got your email address. I know who you are. I've got your email here of all the stupid shit that you're quoting that's all wrong. You want to have your life ruined over this? Wish granted, brother. Wish granted. I keep telling you fucking idiots, stop coming at me. I am going to ruin and destroy your life. You think it's cute or funny now. You're not going to think it's cute or funny when your life is destroyed, when your wife leaves you, when your children won't talk to you because you're a piece of shit and the whole world hates you because you're a fucking retard who is trying to gatekeep free energy and Star Trek technology from us. And the worst part is you are so fucking dumb. You thought you were right. You were so fucking stupid that you actually thought you were right. That's why people are going to make fun of you the most, is that you quadrupled down on being wrong over and over and over. And Ashton Forbes just kept telling you, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And you just refuse to listen. It is 100% your fault. Go back and watch the beginning of this interview, beginning of this live stream, guys. This is the reason why I said, you expect me to be nice to these people? Look at this retarded, psychotic email I get from these nut jobs constantly. It's just retard after retard after retard constantly saying stupid shit because they're too fucking dumb to understand basic reality. They're too dumb to understand that their whole lives have been a lie. No, I'm not going to be nice to any of these people. I'm going to destroy their lives. I'm going to take Jack Sarfati's PhD from him. I'm going to expose to the world that Jack Sarfati is a fucking phony that tells fake stories and doesn't know shit about physics. Doesn't know shit about physics. Doesn't even know that space-time isn't empty. Anybody that's worked on nuclear bombs knows that space-time's not empty. Jack Sarfati doesn't know that because he's never worked on anything important in his life. He's been a clout chaser for his entire life. He's never done anything. And his little gravity shit he's doing with Juan Fier or whatever, that's not going to do anything either. That's just a big failure. You're paying him to do nothing. Jack Sarfati gets paid to do nothing. How does that feel, Jack? Don't worry, I'm going easy on you, bro. I'm actually going easy on you guys, believe it or not. I can make a grown man cry on stream easily. Okay, let's finish this bad boy out because there's one more thing that I want to look at here.
So there was also...
So Gary Stevenson also here at the end says this.
Glad that he went through and systematically published all this material. Yeah, I remember this era, and the Aerospace Corporation was one of his funders, I believe, because Greg Mahalik at Aerospace was keenly aware of what was happening with Martin and would call me in. I was at Space Command at the time as a consultant, and so we would go through his work together.
Space Command? Did Gary Stevenson just say he was at Space Command as a consultant? I'm pretty sure those are the words that I just heard come out of his mouth. Definitely Black Project.
And was one of his funders, I believe, because Greg Mahalik at Aerospace was keenly aware of what was happening with Martin and would call me in. I was at Space Command at the time as a consultant, and so we would go through his work together, and it was very interesting work and very precise. And he was actually doing real.
Wow. So that's pretty much it for the interview, but wow, what a bunch of revelations in there. So now we understand the DIA and CIA aren't necessarily always getting along. We understand that we can convert photons into gravitons using Josephson junctions with asymmetrical superconductors. That means just different superconductors. We got support that the BPP was when they started figuring some of this stuff out. Everybody was coming together with the NASA breakthrough physics propulsion. Gary Stevenson was in a skiff with Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis talking about UFOs when ATIP was first started up. Holy shit. Gary Stevenson was at a 2007 conference that was like at Hal Puthoff's house where all these scientists from across the world were there talking about gravity waves. I'll take any number of Gary Stevensons before I'll take even one Jack Sarfati. Jack Sarfati is a complete fraud on every possible respect. He doesn't know shit about physics. These guys would eat him for lunch 10 times out of 10. I'm pretty sure Jack Sarfati's never built or developed anything. Meanwhile, Gary Stevenson's resume just goes on for miles, practically. And this is the reason, too, is that, they can trust Gary Stevenson. Gary Stevenson is a smart guy. In that interview, he's saying exactly what he wants to say and nothing more. Somebody like Jack Sarfati is just an idiot. He can't control anything that he says and just makes up fake stories nonstop. So he would never be brought in. They want people like Gary Stevenson who are smart, not idiots who can't control their emotions like Jack Sarfati. Okay, guys, that's it for tonight. I appreciate you guys. I'm going to play you out with a different one. I'm going to have to edit this out of the final thing because it's going to issue a copyright strike. So if you are watching a replay, you're not going to see this, but you can check it out on my Twitter channel. It's my favorite video out there. It actually gets me emotional to watch this. And especially I think it's appropriate after tonight because this science goes really far back. Like we're talking 60, 70, 80 years. And scientists have been working on this, understanding all the concepts. And that's what's led us to this moment right now. That's what's led us to this moment right now. Let me hit these last donos real quick. War Ranch LLC. Yes, I know about L3 Harris. Thank you very much. Mike, Ashton, really appreciate all that you're doing. The arrogance of these brainiacs is boundless. Thank you for researching this in the chat. Yes, awesome. And then my cat man, their little egos just can't take it. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Chaotic good says, do it, lady. Awake Not Woke sends the can over. Thank you very much. And Methyl says, you're hilarious. I appreciate it. I try, guys. I try. Here you go. Here's your moment of Zen tonight. We're going to play us off with this one. The Ashton mashup. Ashton Science. Where is it? Science mashup. Shit. People think that's fake? You really think that's fake? Look at what we're about to watch right here. You tell me you really think this is fake? Birdman. 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 That's my legend. That's my boy. There she is. There's Sal. We're gonna win, chat. Zero device. Climatic. Magnetic river. Distance is an illusion, chat. Only the ball is moving. Look at that, magnetic gate. Magnetic gate. This is my favorite, the double bounce. Love how it goes both ways. Magnetic river can go both ways, guys. Going upstream.
Than Nigerian hair, my criteria compared to your career just isn't fair. Through the pencil and leak on the sheet of the tablet in my mind, cause I don't write shit, cause I ain't
standing wave. That's a standing wave.
Hours go to the almighty dollar and the
acoustic levitation. Are we sure sound isn't a gravity wave?
The son, daughter, father, motherfucker, copper, got the Maserati dancing on the bridge, pussy poppin', tell the coppers, ha ha ha, you can't catch them, you can't stop them.
Eric Lakewhite, what a G, guys.
You can't beat them, then you pop them, you can't man them, then you mop them, you can't stand them, then you drop them.
Thomas Townsend Brown effect. Hell yeah, plasma toroids, baby. And of course, Z-Pinch. Motherfucker, I'm ill. Motherfucker, I'm ill. Motherfucker, I'm ill. Motherfucker, resonance. Motherfucker, I'm ill. I want that hot Christmas life in me. I want that hot Christmas life in me. I want that hot Christmas life in me. I want that hot Liberty Engine. Free energy for the world, chat. I love you, MH370X. Have a great night, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for following. Thank you for supporting. Remember, we're going to win. For the day I die, I'ma touch the sky. I'ma touch the sky.